Okay, so this is a continuation of Chapter 2, Visual Dyslexia in the Classroom, and this section has to do with difficulty with the alphabet. Of major concern to primary teachers is the visual dyslexic's inability to cope with the alphabet. The unstructured way in which the alphabet is introduced to primary pupils is largely to blame for uncorrected visual dyslexia. For half a century, elementary teachers have studiously avoided rote learning of the alphabet by beginner children. Clinicians have known for years that beginners have been learning the alphabetic sequence on their own, usually from charts displayed in primary classrooms or from songs. Educators, however, have generally discouraged direct teaching of the alphabetic sequence before grade 2. This unstructured approach has posed no problem for most children. Pupils with normal perception usually acquire knowledge of the alphabet as they need it, thus vindicating professors who advise teachers to avoid rote learning. However, well-meaning this philosophy may be, it has denied dyslexic children the only learning context in which they can succeed, that of a structured, direct encounter with specifics. Since the visual dyslexic's principal weakness is faulty perception of sequence, having little or no sequence to follow proves disastrous when he is confronted with symbol systems. Had Mike been well grounded in alphabetic sequence at the very beginning of his school experience, he could have coped with beginning reading tasks more successfully. A simple technique for determining a child's perception of the alphabet is for the teacher to watch him write it on ruled paper. Any dyslexic tendencies will quickly become apparent. Children with normal perception usually write the alphabet in sequence without hesitation. Visual dyslexics cannot. When asked to write the alphabet, Mike will often stall, asking whether he should print or use cursive. When told that it does not matter, he may want to know if he should use big letters or little letters. Dyslexic children seldom comprehend the term capital and lowercase. Next, Mike may ask whether he should go across the paper or down the page. And when finally at work, he will reach a stalling point, often at letter M. Whenever he bogs down, he goes back to A and whispers the letters one by one, trying to remember the whole sequence. Occasionally, he will hum the alphabet song to himself. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. The observer can easily note the dyslexic's problem of synchronizing speech with writing. Mike's voice will usually be ahead of his eyes or finger. Consequently, reviewing his written work still does not help him identify errors. Mike is very slow as he writes or prints the alphabet. The letters M, N, P, U, and V are often in scrambled positions. In addition to this serial problem, he confuses similar letters such as B, D, P, and Q, R, H, U, and N, H, P, and Y, T, F, and J, capital M and capital W, capital N and capital Z, lowercase r and s, and lowercase v, w, k, y, and x, and finally O, E, and C. As he writes, Mike makes certain letters with backward hand motions. He frequently forms circular components of letters with a clockwise motion when it should be counterclockwise. as well as marking from the bottom upward when writing the letters T, F, P, G, B, or D. Usually they're top to bottom. Unless the teacher is carefully observing this work, she might not be aware of this backward motion, an earmark of visual dyslexia. It is common for the visual dyslexic to mix capital and lowercase letters when writing the alphabet, as well as mixing manuscript and cursive styles. Mike's reasons for this inconsistent writing are actually quite practical. Because he has not been taught the sequence of the alphabet, thereby never having encountered the letters in relation to each other in a continuum, he has devised his own system for identifying certain letter forms. Capital B and capital D are stable in his perception, although they may be written backwards, while small b or lowercase b is too easily confused with D, P, and Q. So long as he continues to deal with isolated letters in manuscript style, there is no dependable structure to which Mike can anchor his perceptions of the alphabet. The following handwriting specimens illustrate these dyslexic tendencies. It is unfortunate that well-meaning adults misinterpret such handicapped work as the mark of inferior intellect or laziness. Now, here's where the actual book would come in handy for any teacher or parent or interested party to see what this work actually looks like. Okay, these are examples that Dr. Jordan actually puts in of student work, and he mentions their intelligence level and grade level, just to compare. Again, more of the student work. For further insight into a child's perception, the teacher traces symbols on the pupil's back. Okay, now this part is probably not advisable unless you're a parent working with your child. Okay, it involves having the child stand in front of you and forming the letter on their back and seeing how they recognize the letter, to see if they can figure out what it is from that position. And it's all tactile. For further insight into a child's perception, the teacher traces the symbols on the student's back. Then the child writes what he saw on the chalkboard. Now, when I say saw, he actually felt it, but in his mind he's forming an image. The pupil may write in cursive style when the teacher has traced in manuscript. That does not matter. No issue should be made of this, however. The purpose of tracing on the back is to identify the child's immediate perception of the symbol, not to test his recognition of writing style. The previous specimens illustrate the insights which this test can yield. In each case, the symbols traced by the teacher are on the left, and the pupil's responses are on the right. And again, you need to actually have the book, to be able to see what we're talking about here. Reversal of symbols. This is important. An earmark of visual dyslexia is the child's confusion as to the direction certain symbols should face. This faulty perception causes the pupil to write or read symbols backwards, upside down, or partially rotated. Notice my shirt, okay? Upside down, sideways, sideways. This tendency is illustrated in the following writing specimen. As described earlier in the chapter, dyslexics generally use a capital B and D as a means of distinguishing between these similar letter forms. The following specimen also illustrates dysgraphia. So as you can see down the page, there were a bunch of words given to the child who had to write them on paper. And whenever it's a word with a B in it, The capital B is always used because it's easier to make sure you don't make a mistake. Oral reading. The tendency to reverse or rotate symbols is a handicap in reading printed materials. There we go, the rotation again. Often dyslexics read whole words in reverse. Sometimes only certain kinds of syllables are reversed within the words. Initial letters, especially lowercase b, d, p, q, h, r, m, w, and u, are frequently perceived upside down or backwards, causing the reader to mistake many words for others that are similar. This results in nonsense, forcing the dyslexic reader to study the context of the material to find his mistake in word recognition. Dyslexics usually are able to learn techniques of self-correction when their patterns of faulty perception are pointed out to them. The teacher can detect this tendency by listening to her pupils read aloud from printed material. Within a few minutes, she can identify children with reversal habits. A simple instrument for classroom use is the JOST, the Jordan Oral Screening Test, which is given in the book in the back. As the child reads aloud, the teacher makes rapid notes of errors. Careful observation reveals any dyslexic patterns in the pupil's handling of word elements. The following oral reading errors are often indicators of dyslexia. Number 1, reversal of the beginning letters. Bark for the word dark. Dump for the word bump. Number 2, transposition of blends and digraphs. So preform for the word perform. There for the word 3, meaning the number 3. Star for stream. Porfit for profit. Number 3, substitution of one similar letter for another. Sleep for sheep. Come for came. Number 4, transposition of letters within the word. Magillant for malignant. Macilious for malicious. Number 5, reversal of whole words. On for the word no. Saw for the word was. But for tub. Number 6, failure to perceive minimal cues. House for horse. With for wish. Butter for better. Hungry for hunger. This includes habitual failure to perceive punctuation cues. Number 7, omission of endings. Ever for the word every. Her for the word here. Happen for the word happened. Number 8, telescoping. Standardize for standardize. Consently for consequently. Suddenly for the word suddenly. Number 9, perseveration. Hopenen for hope. Suddenly for suddenly. Farmerer for farmer. Visual dyslexia is suspected only when several of these symptoms exist in the child's oral reading. Teachers must be careful to distinguish between faulty vision and dyslexia.